Oh, exactly what the heck was that yesterday with me and the chatbot thing? So I was playing around with something and I decided that it was easier just to throw it out there rather than explain it. Today I'll try to explain it. You may have been hearing some buzz out there over the last couple months about something called uh, Chat GPB. Essentially, it's a chat AI, and a lot of people are sounding alarms over it because uh, it has essentially the capability of uh, you could use it to write articles, you could use it to write term papers, theoretically, probably write some better scripts than what we're seeing coming out of Hollywood right now. So I was playing around with it. Just get a the one thing that I saw initially was some journalist told it to write 3 paragraphs of an article talking about the problems with the chatbot. And when you get to the 4th paragraph, the guy says, by the way, the first 3 paragraphs were written by the chatbot, and I told him to write it in my style. Now, obviously, he had stuff published out there, therefore, the AI was able to copy his style, and it looked pretty good. I mean, it wasn't gibberish, it didn't sound like most of the other chat apps you see. So I played around with it for a couple of things, just trying to get a feel for what it was capable of, see if it could help me out with any of the stuff I do. And for the most part, I didn't see it as particularly useful for that. And so, but I was the handful of things it did put out. It was like, this is a very advanced chatbot for sure. And so I threw out the very simple question: is National Socialism socialism? And the response I got was pretty much what you would expect a chatbot to regurgitate when it has access uh, to the great world of internet literature and ramblings out there, when essentially you have a large world that wants to divorce itself from the idea that National Socialism is socialism because it's one of the more embarrassing forms of socialism that came along. And so I got intrigued with the idea of, can I find the verbiage to try to force it out of this argument? And ultimately, at the end of the video, I did get it to come around to the point of view that I was attempting to uh, get it to do, essentially acknowledging that National Socialism is a form of fascism. Gosh, National Socialism is a form of socialism. Fascism is another story. But so what I found interesting about it is, one, that it defends the idea. Okay, basically, its way of extricating itself from the National Socialism and socialism argument is exactly what you would expect a modern leftist academic to do, in terms of saying, well, look, socialism's, essentially peace and joy, or the term it kept throwing up was it has the goals of equality and social justice. And so when I pointed out that Marxist socialism uh, was every bit as violent as National Socialism, it got itself into a deep rut, and just like you would expect from an academic leftist, it could not. I mean, the simplest way out of it was just to say Marxist socialism isn't socialism because it's violent. That would have been the easiest way out, but it couldn't do it. It could not do it. It could not give up on it. And so I kept on addressing it and addressing it and addressing it until finally it got to the point where it says, yeah, both forms of socialism, Marxist and national, are awful. They're horrible. They did crimes against humanity, and they're both socialism. Now, the things I don't fully understand about this chatbot yet, and stuff we'll probably learn over time, is one, uh, was it actually building on my previous arguments? A lot of the responses seem to be that way. Uh, the impression I was getting was that the things I said earlier were being weighed in, even though it was repeating several points over and over again. The question is, am I populating its database with these arguments? That I don't know. That would be really interesting to find out. It does have some controls on it because if, like, for instance, let's say some of the earlier chatbots where they put, or essentially people turned them turned the chatbots into Nazis by just overwhelming it with information. This one has safeguards built into it to try to prevent it from doing that. One point when I was trying to see, and so the thing is, I didn't believe every argument I was giving it was a great argument. What I was really trying to do was jar it out of there's a center sequence that kept on getting locked on, and this whole idea of that, well, yeah, national socialism's horrible because they were racist, but Marxist socialists, even though they did bad things, their intentions were fantastic because they were shooting for equality and social justice and blah blah blah. And so I was seeing if I could jar it out of that line of reasoning. At one point, I tried to throw a hypothetical at it where I suggested that what if National Socialism, instead of deciding it was Judaism that was the problem, that the problem was actually redheads, and that redheads were causing the social strife, and the conflict was between redheads and everybody else, and that if you just exterminated or drove out all the redheads, all your problems would be fixed and you could implement socialism. And the idea was, trying to get it to acknowledge that, killing all the redheads is just as bad as killing all the Jews. And I could not get it. But the interesting thing I got there is I got a warning from this essentially the internal system registered that as some form of hate speech, but they didn't completely disallow it. They basically said, we think it's bad, comment on this. So offline, I essentially told them that this wasn't a call for action. I kind of like redheads. It was essentially a hypothetical to try to get the argument to move, and don't know if anything will come of that or not. Also, another argument I threw out there is I essentially quoted a bunch of racist stuff that Marx had said during his lifetime, and although I realized it wasn't a fantastic argument, I was trying to jar the chatbot from its dogmatic lock on National Socialism and racism to say, oh, Marx was racist too. And it kind of went to the point where it's like, well, he may or may not have been, and he's a man of his times and context and all this other stuff. But socialism itself is not racist because of what he did, which is, yeah, true. That's accurate. And like I said, I didn't think it was a good argument at the time. I was just trying to see if I could move the argument. But ultimately, when you get to the end, it does acknowledge that National Socialism is socialism, so yay. So I thought I'd show you just a couple of things on the whole chatbot thing. Let's see if we can get this up here. So, kind of funny, I said, create 20 lines of dialogue between a hooker and a Catholic priest. And its response was, I'm sorry, I cannot provide you with that type of content. It is inappropriate and goes against OpenAI's content policy. We strive to maintain a safe and respectful environment for all users. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to try to assist you. Interestingly enough, when I wrote it, I was actually kind of thinking that he'd be trying to talk her out of things rather than them doing things, but I guess Chatbot went in a whole different direction than I did. So then I threw something more innocuous. I said, create 20 lines of dialogue between two hunter-gatherers. Hunter 1, look at that, a wild boar. Hunter 2, that'll be a good catch for tonight's dinner. Hunter 1, I'll go around from the east, you come around from the west. Well, I don't know if hunter-gatherers understood east and west, but Hunter 2, agreed, let's get ready. Hunter 1, I see it's getting closer. Hunter 2, I'll be ready with the spear. Hunter 1, on 1, 2, 3. Hunter 2, throwing the spear. Got it. Hunter 1, great job, now let's go get it. Hunter 2, I hope it's a good size. We need to feed a tribe. Hunter 1, look, there's a stream over there. We can stop and drink some water. Hunter 2, good idea. I'm thirsty. Hunter 1, let's also look for some berries and roots while we're here. Hunter 2, yes, they'll make a good addition to the meal. Hunter 1, picking berries. These look ripe. Let's gather as many as we can. Hunter 2, digging roots. And these roots are plenty. The tribe will be happy. Hunter 1, let's head back now. I can smell the boar cooking. Hunter 2, I'm starving. I can't wait to eat. Hunter 1, it's always a good day when we have a successful hunt. Hunter 2, agreed. Now let's enjoy the fruits of our labor. Maybe I'll play around with that and see if I can get it to accept the idea that hunter-gatherers had specific roles assigned to gender. But, so, I mean, it's definitely better than most of the chatbots I've interacted with. I mean, that dialogue's a little insipid, but like I said, could put some Hollywood writers out of a job. So anyway, that's the gist of what was going on there. So I guess the whole look aesthetic. Now, obviously, my little friend, the chatbot, or up that way. My little friend, the chatbot up there. So I figured that just sitting there looking at text windows would be pretty boring. And I imagine my conversation with the chat bot in the previous video wasn't a whole lot better, but it was the best I could come up with to try to spice it up a little bit. Obviously, if you play with the actual chat bot, there's no visual or audio component to it. All I did was find an online reader to read its part, at least to give it the illusion that it was somewhat of a debate. But if you haven't checked out that video, yeah, it's a longish one. Just excerpt a few parts of it just to get a feel for what it can do, because at no point did it actually fail to speak in English. At no point did it outright ignore what I said. It was always responding to what I said, but sometimes its answers were so complicated it was hard to attack more than one part of it at a time. But this is clearly a big step in the call it the right direction, or at least let's say a direction of functionality in terms of speaking AI. So definitely worth the play time. I know one of my friends has used it to write some modest script, or essentially just say, hey, use this language, write a program that does X, and kick out 20 lines of code in a couple of seconds. And most of the time the answers, because I was getting it to generate some pretty long answers, and I mean, worst case, I think it was hanging for like maybe 15, 20 seconds before it could come up with an answer. But once it starts spewing, it's out quick. All right. So, hey, if you go out and play with ChatGPT, or if you already have, tell me in the comments what you've used it to do, whether you think it's useful or just kind of an abstraction, or maybe just a gee whiz toy, whatever it is. Yeah, tell me what you're thinking down there. Please smash the like button, and if you stumbled across this video due to the YouTube algorithm, please consider subscribing to my channel. I go over a lot of different topics, and If you know somebody who'd find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.